Welcome to today's Explainer. So, we are diving into a massive, totally fascinating topic today. From MDGs to SDGs, the evolution of global progress. We're really going to explore how humanity actually tracks its own evolution on a global scale. It's a complex puzzle, for sure, but decoding this process really uncovers the blueprint for our shared future.
Think about it for a second. How does the world actually measure progress? I mean, if you're a business, you just look at your quarterly profits, right? Or if you're a single country, you're probably looking at GDP or employment rates. But how on earth do you measure the progress of the entire human race? For a really long time, the answer was just messy. It was fragmented. But recently, our global measuring stick got a massive, much-needed upgrade.
Okay, so to really grasp where we are right now, we need to consider three defining historical checkpoints, three global development eras. First up is the year 2000, which birthed our very first global framework. Then, the major pivot in 2015, where one era ended and a vastly more ambitious one launched. And finally, 2030, which is the big target year we are all currently racing toward. These three dates, they're basically the scaffolding for literally everything we're about to talk about.
Let's start with our baseline. Think of this as Global Progress version 1.0. Back in the year 2000, the world adopted the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs. These were 8 very specific, highly focused targets aimed at basic human needs. We're talking reducing poverty, improving health, achieving universal education, and promoting gender equality, all by the year 2015. The really big deal here is that the MDGs marked the very first time the entire world actually agreed on a unified global compact for development.
So, the big question, did version 1.0 actually work? Well, yes. It was a huge, tangible success. Because the MDGs focused on measurable outcomes, the world literally halved extreme poverty. Just think about the sheer magnitude of that for a second. Millions and millions of people were lifted out of absolute destitution. On top of that, child mortality plummeted and access to basic education expanded globally. It proved that setting clear, collective goals actually does drive real human progress.
But, well, you know how it is. No first draft is ever perfect, right? While the MDGs absolutely moved the needle on human development, as that 2015 deadline started getting closer, a pretty stark realization began to dawn on the global community. These initial goals were missing some massive, existential pieces of the puzzle. There were huge blind spots that we just couldn't ignore anymore.
So what were these limitations? First off, the overall scope was just way too narrow. Second, the MDGs largely ignored the glaring inequality that exists across different regions. They were pretty much just focused on metrics for developing nations, rather than treating the globe as one massive connected system. And third, and this is a big one, there was incredibly limited attention given to environmental sustainability. The MDGs were all about human metrics, which left a gaping hole regarding the actual ecology of the planet we live on. I mean, 8. Just 8 goals for the entire planet. When you look back at the year 2000, it almost seems impossibly narrow, doesn't it? Like, it was a fantastic starting point, absolutely. But trying to capture the sheer complexity of human and planetary survival in just 8 bullet points? In hindsight, we've vastly underestimated the challenge.
But then 2015 rolls around, and bam, that number jumps to 17. This represents a massive expansion in scale and ambition. The world finally realized that you can't just fix 8 isolated things and call it a day. The framework had to expand to match the reality of a super complex, interconnected world.
And get this, underneath those 17 broad goals, the global agenda exploded into 169 specific, measurable targets. We literally went from a basic checklist to a fully fleshed out, highly detailed global operating system.
Welcome to version 2.0, the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Launched in 2015 as the core of the UN's 2030 Agenda, these aren't just an updated list. They are a profound shift in how we see our world. The SDGs are universal. That means they apply to everyone, rich countries, poor countries, all of us. And most importantly, they integrate developments and the environment as completely inseparable dimensions. It's all about inclusivity, resilience, and true long-term sustainability.
If we compare the MDGs and the SDGs directly, the shift is pretty mind-blowing. The MDGs had that narrow scope, laser-focused on human development, with environmental issues kind of taking a backseat. The SDGs completely evolved that into a universal framework. They brilliantly integrate ecological sustainability right alongside human development. We move from a narrow, isolated view of progress to a deeply holistic global vision.
Notice how human-centric goals now sit directly alongside ecological ones.
We still carry forward those vital human aims from the MDGs, like no poverty and quality education. But now they are inextricably linked to climate action, life on land, and life below water. The environment is absolutely no longer treated as an afterthought or some luxury add-on. It's woven directly into the very fabric of global development.
What we are really talking about here is a total paradigm shift. It is a philosophy of interdependence. This isn't just the UN adding more goals to a clipboard to keep bureaucrats busy. No, this is a fundamental, urgent realization about human survival. You simply cannot have a healthy society or a thriving economy on a dying planet. Everything is connected. To actually make this interdependence work in the real world, the SDG framework rests on three core pillars: economic growth, social equity, and environmental protection. And the absolute genius here is recognizing that you literally cannot decouple them. Think about it. If you have economic growth but you destroy the environment, the whole thing eventually collapses. If you protect the environment but ignore poverty and social equity, well, that's not sustainable either. All three pillars have to rise together. Which leads us to the ultimate core thesis of this whole evolution. To quote the source material directly, without safeguarding the environment, development gains cannot be sustained. It's that simple. And that profound. All the incredible progress we made during the MDG era, the poverty reduction, the better health outcomes, all of it will eventually collapse if the ecological foundation beneath it just crumbles away.
So I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Can our current trajectory sustain both our economies and our ecosystems? We've just seen how our global blueprint evolved from the narrow MDGs to the holistic, integrated SDGs of the 2030 Agenda. We know the interconnected rules of the game now. The real question is, as informed global citizens, how are we going to apply this understanding to the world around us today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.